"You're such a loser. You don't need to come to work anymore." These were the abrupt words I heard from my boss, Keith. My name is James, and I currently work as a web designer. My parents divorced when I was a child, and my mother raised us single-handedly. I'm very grateful to her now. I have a younger sister who is quite responsible. She is currently living with her fiancé, Alex. My sister and I have always been close, and since Alex is around our age, we sometimes meet up for meals together. Ever since I was little, I loved drawing. While I did enjoy playing outside, I often ended up taking care of my sister, so I would watch cartoons and constantly draw characters and portraits. My sister always enjoyed my drawings. I remember winning first prize for a portrait of my sister I drew for a summer vacation school assignment. Our mother was very pleased. I had a cousin who was a bit older than me and worked in web design. Influenced by him, I developed an interest in design and went straight to a design school after graduating from high school. Back then, I thought my cousin's work in design was incredibly cool. He showed me some incredible drawings that I couldn't believe were his, and each time, I was utterly amazed. Though I burdened my mother with my education, she always supported me. I truly believe I made it this far thanks to her. I am very grateful to her now. Recently, I've finally been able to do something that resembles filial piety, and I intend to do more in the future. Growing up, my mother always told me, if you live honestly, the connections you make with people will lead you to happiness. I didn't fully understand the essence of those words back then, but now I do. The president of the company I work for, Mr. Jackson, is a great person who interviewed me for my job. Although I didn't see Mr. Jackson often, he was always friendly and considerate towards the employees he encountered. I respected Mr. Jackson greatly. That's why I'm really glad to have gotten a job at this design office. However, there's one thing that bothers me. My boss, Keith, who joined the company mid-career, is a really unpleasant guy. He is the type who would easily betray others for his own benefit, so I don't like him much. One day, when I arrived at work, the office was abuzz. What happened? I asked a colleague for details. Michael, my colleague, then said, "This morning, it seems that Mr. Jackson passed away in an accident on his way to the company." Hearing this, I rushed to confirm the truth with Keith. As I headed there, thinking it might be a lie, I overheard the higher-ups discussing it. Regrettably, it was true that Mr. Jackson had passed away. I was shocked. I had been able to keep going because I was under Mr. Jackson. A few days later, Mr. Jackson's funeral was held with only close relatives, but as some employees from the company were helping, the office was noisy. I wanted to say goodbye to Mr. Jackson, who had helped me, so I later visited his house personally. I am truly grateful to Mr. Jackson. May he rest in peace. I said this while looking at his portrait. I had really wanted to continue working under Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson's wife said to me, "From now on, my son will take care of the company, so please support him." I had heard rumors that the next president would be his son, and indeed it was true. Having heard this ahead of time, I decided to keep it to myself until it was officially announced. Soon after, the passing of Mr. Jackson and his son becoming the new president was officially announced. The new president was very capable in sales, and, as I lack sales skills, there was a lot to learn from him. However, while it was good that the new president brought in a lot of work, there were overwhelmingly too few employees to handle it. Knowing the situation, he still mercilessly increased the workload. The company became busier by the day. I was exhausted. This is unsustainable. I'm so tired. I want to quit. As I heard these desperate cries from my colleagues every day, I felt like I was going to lose my mind too. The employees were constantly overworked, leaving them with no time for personal life and completely drained. As a result, some started falling ill. To cover for those who couldn't come into poor health, the workload increased even further, creating a vicious cycle. One day, I decided to talk to President Jackson about this. It wasn't something I would normally do, but I felt it was the only option left. President Jackson, excuse me, as you know, we are severely understaffed. The employees are at their limit, as you can see. Can't something be done about this? The president laughed and said, haha, having work is a good thing, right? It's all thanks to me, sorry, but I won't hire more staff as it increases labor costs. Unable to respond, I felt powerless and left his office. After that, Keith joined a company mid-career, but he just added stress to the already terrible environment. Keith didn't care about his subordinates at all and was just a yes man to President Jackson. Thanks to President Jackson, our company is achieving great results. He's really something. Keith would say this every day, buttering up President Jackson. But he was relentless with the employees. The huge workload he dumped on us made our work even more intense. My colleagues and I, who had been working hard all along, had long surpassed our limits. Many employees, sacrificing sleep and working on weekends, struggled to keep up, and it was painful to watch. Keith, while observing this situation daily, focused on pleasing President Jackson and, being eloquent, took credit for all the good results at client meetings. The staff, angry at their collective efforts being claimed as Keith's achievements, were frustrated. And I was just appalled by all of this. Amidst this, a joyful news came in. My sister was finally getting married. In these days of despair, it was a rare bright topic. My little sister getting married, I was overjoyed and basked in the happiness for a while. We decided to have an early celebration with the family. My mother was very happy, and my sister and Alex looked genuinely content, which was wonderful. It turned out that Alex had proposed to her on her birthday. Alex had been pondering the timing of the proposal, so I advised him that since they were already living together and he was like family, any time would be fine. I'm glad it went well. The wedding date was set, and although I was worried about getting time off due to the company's situation, I was eager to attend. I looked forward to imagining what the wedding would be like. At the company, I immediately arranged my work schedule to take a leave for the wedding. There was a lot to do, but by working on weekends, I managed to finish my part. Since the wedding was decided, my sister seemed happy, enjoying choosing her dress and other preparations. I wondered if I would ever have such a day, but I didn't even have a partner yet. I thought about starting to look for a girlfriend once things settled down. And so, the wedding day arrived without a hitch. I was moved throughout the ceremony. Seeing my sister in her bridal attire almost brought me to tears, which I struggled to hold back. Memories of her falling off her unicycle and crying when she was little, her rebellious teenage years, and when she first introduced Alex flashed through my mind. The reception was a blast, with delicious food and well-thought-out entertainment. My sister looked stunning in her wedding gown, and even as her brother, I thought she was beautiful. I don't usually take many photos, but on this day, I took a lot. My phone's album was filled with pictures of the wedding. Although I'm not a parent, I couldn't stop my tears of joy throughout the event. I sincerely wished for their happiness. I'm sure Alex will make my sister happy. My mother, sitting beside me, kept nodding and seemed to be engraving the wedding ceremony in her memory, just like I was. This wedding will surely become a lifetime memory. After the ceremony ended smoothly, I drove my mother back to our family home. Immersed in the afterglow of the wedding at home, I received a call from President Jackson. Abruptly jolted back to reality. Having to think about work even on a day like this, I sighed. When I answered the phone, President Jackson was furious. Taking a leave without caring about work, who do you think you are? President Jackson was livid. Although I had clearly written that I was taking leave for a family wedding, President Jackson seemed unaware of it. I explained about my sister's wedding and apologized. I felt it was completely unnecessary to apologize, and it soured the great day. The next day, when I went to the office, Michael approached me hastily. "Yesterday, Keith told President Jackson that you're a lousy and worthless employee. So that's why President Jackson was so angry. But why do I have to be slandered by Keith? This company is just anything goes now." Anger welled up inside me. I had properly completed my work before taking leave, and taking time off for a family wedding is a given, right? I shouldn't be criticized for such a thing. Yet, being called a lousy and worthless employee, what on earth is happening with this company? Involuntarily frustrated, I found myself clicking my tongue in annoyance, feeling helpless about my situation. Shortly after, Keith approached me, saying, "President Jackson is calling for you." I sensed I would be scolded, but I had plenty to say too. Upon entering the president's office, President Jackson asked, "Did you enjoy yesterday, James?" I simply replied, "Yes." Then President Jackson said, "Well, someone like you doesn't need to come to the company anymore." Pardon. I was so surprised that I blurted out the question. What is President Jackson talking about? Being fired for taking a day off for a family wedding, despite working hard every day. I couldn't take it anymore and felt like bursting. I wanted to grab and punch him, but I answered, "If you say I don't need to come anymore, then I really won't. For now, I'll use up all my remaining leave." Visibly upset, I left his office. "I can't work under such a president." Keith watched me with a satisfied look. He's really messing around too. I felt like punching Keith as well. Sensing something was wrong, Michael approached and asked. Still angry, I told Michael the whole story, and seeing him get angry on my behalf helped calm me down. After submitting the leave documents and finishing my work, I immediately prepared to leave. I decided to go camping, a hobby I hadn't indulged in for a while. I thought going away would clear my mind. The next morning, I woke up early and drove about 2 hours to the mountains. Upon arrival, I efficiently set up my tent. After setting everything up, I started boiling water. As I watched the fire, the words President Jackson said to me yesterday flashed back in my mind. What does he mean by "you don't need to come anymore"? Just thinking about it made me angry. I was so lost in thought that I didn't even notice the water boiling over. Being out camping, perhaps it was the power of nature, I gradually felt liberated from the daily hustle and the unpleasantness, and my mind seemed to rest. Eating the good quality meat I splurged on, while listening to the river flowing in the quiet mountains, I relieved my stress. Eating outdoors is really delicious. Just the change in air makes everything feel fresh. Occasionally, I thought about how everyone at the office must be swamped, but I tried not to dwell on it. I spent time fishing, grilling the fish I caught, and watching birds occasionally visit the river. It reminded me of a childhood camping trip with a local community group. Back then, I had a crush and was excited about camping with her. I remembered nervously approaching her during the campfire. It was my first love. But then, seeing her playing happily with another boy was a shock. I wonder what she's doing now. Lost in these old memories, I was enjoying myself. Later, I realized I was indulging in fantasies all alone and felt a bit down. At night, the stars were beautifully visible, so I took pictures under the starry sky. And I set one as my phone's wallpaper. It felt like something good was going to happen. I had planned to stay for 2 or 3 nights, but in the end, I returned home after just 1 night. I thought it would be nice to visit my family home since I had the chance. When I contacted my mom, she suggested inviting my sister and her husband over for a family meal. "Did you go camping, James?" My sister and her husband had arrived earlier, and by the time I got there, the meal was already prepared. I brought some souvenirs on my way back from camping, and they were happy to have them. The impromptu long weekend and the camping trip turned out to be a great conversation starter. We all got excited about the idea of going camping together as a family next time. Nowadays, there are campsites with hot springs and pools, making it easy and enjoyable for women too. After the meal, we talked about various things for the future. I spent a few nights at my parents' house, fully refreshed. I had plenty of time to think about my future work. And now, my leave was ending, and I had to return to work tomorrow. When I went to the office the next day, it was chaos. Apparently, while I was away, Keith tried to cover for me but ended up causing a storm of complaints as the work didn't get done. Seeing Keith, it seemed like he was about to explode. So this is what happens when a useless employee isn't around. I was just astounded. Then Keith noticed me and came over. "James, I'm sorry for everything. I finally understand how much your work meant." His apology was too little too late for me. I submitted my resignation on the spot. "James, please reconsider, I beg you," Keith pleaded, a complete turnaround from his usual attitude, but my mind was already made up. I left the company. Actually, I had been considering this direction from the start. After the former president passed away and the management changed, I didn't have confidence in continuing with this company. I knew my body wouldn't last in such an intense work environment, and I used this leave to think about my next job. In fact, during my leave, I was preparing to start a new company with Alex. Alex, too, was struggling with his current job as a designer. So, we discussed starting our own company together. Alex had always been much better at sales than me, so I was confident we would make a great team. My sister also supported us. And so, we quickly launched our company. We had been preparing behind the scenes and even managed to recruit some colleagues from my former company, which sped things up. Indeed, Alex's sales skills were outstanding, and soon our business was on the right track. Some of our clients were people I had worked with at my previous company, and hearing them say, "We feel secure with you here," was gratifying. In just a few months, our company's monthly sales reached $10 million. The colleagues we recruited turned out to be a tremendous asset. Unlike my previous company, we were not overwhelmed with work, and we're even planning to hire more staff due to increasing workload. We intend to keep growing the company. Our employees work happily every day. The office atmosphere is bright, creating a conducive working environment. I'm always thinking of ways to maintain a good cycle to keep the motivation high. Indeed, motivation is crucial. Then, I heard that my previous company had gone out of business. While my colleagues were happy, I couldn't help but think of the former president of my old company, whom I had respected. It was an unfortunate situation. But I couldn't forgive Keith or President Jackson, so in a way, I felt relieved. Rumor has it that both President Jackson and Keith are struggling to find new jobs. It seems impossible for them to work under someone else after all that's happened. They had it coming. Since then, I've been fully committed to my work. And then, I had a fateful encounter. One of our clients employed the woman who was my first love. I recognized her immediately. There was a resemblance, and when I started talking to her, it turned out she was indeed the same person. After moving to a nearby town, she had been living quite close all this time. She vaguely remembered me, and we quickly exchanged contact information and grew closer. She hadn't changed much since we were kids, and it felt like a dream. And now, I feel the happiest I've ever been in my life. She became my wife. Experiencing such a fateful encounter firsthand, I truly felt that living earnestly and valuing connections with people brought me happiness. I plan to always uphold my mother's teachings. And when I have children, I'll definitely pass this lesson on to them. Living honestly leads to happiness through the connections you make with others.